Whoever wants to speak can go on.
I'll tee it up. I'll get it started.
Okay.
My name is Stephen
Share your
Volbrecht.
time.
I'm the state risk manager for Texas, and in that capacity serve as the executive director of the State Office of Risk Management. First of all, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members, thank you very much. Just want to note, thank you for accommodating us in your schedule. Mr. Ladner is here today because we have just completed our quarterly board meeting, so he was kind enough to join us today. There are a number of items that Mr. Ladner, as the chair, would like to speak on for you today. Just a little bit of background. I'm not going to read the submitted testimony. You have that. So just a little bit of background about the agency. For those of you who have not met us before, we are not an audit agency. We're not an enforcement agency. We're not a regulator. We serve essentially, and we're created to do what looks like an insurance company owned by the state. So we were initially created back in 1996, went into operations in 1997, and that was to get workers' compensation costs under control in Texas for Texas state employees, right? So we were trending up to about $100 million a year. So the legislature got together and said that it would be a good idea if they took the people who were responsible for preventing the injuries and the people who were responsible for paying the claims and getting medical treatment and put them in one agency. So we remain administratively attached to the Office of the Attorney General, which used to have the claims operations piece. What is now DWC had the workers' health and safety. So we now have both of those things. In the first 2 years of our operations, we did cut those costs by about $20 million. And over time, that delta has increased to about $60 million in savings. We did not do that by denying claims. We did that actually by accepting more claims, by paying for the best medical care that we could possibly afford, and returning people back to work as quickly as we could. That cost avoidance is what is represented by that delta. Now, since that time, our missions have expanded 3 times. So you may know us as the workers' compensation entity, or at least that pays the workers' compensation claims. But our mission set has been expanded here and in the House a number of times. The first was after 9/11, when the federal government required all federal agencies to have a continuity of operations plan. Texas then made a determination that they were going to do the same thing. So every state agency has to have a continuity of operations plan. And there are direct monetary impacts with respect to that as well. What it means is we've got succession planning, we've got delegations, mission essential functions are identified up front, and we pre-stage and we're ready to bring up services as quickly as possible. We can give you a whole bunch of different examples of exactly how that's worked, but we have not had an agency go down for more than 48 hours in the history of the program. And that's an incredible savings on business interruption and insurance. So I'll speak to that second part. Workers' compensation is retained by the state. We don't receive any general revenue, as you heard from the LBB. All of this is funded by the agencies and for the agencies through the authority to collect those funds and then pass them through the program. With respect to risk transfer, which is the purchase of insurance products for any liabilities that we might have, whether that's property exposures, builder's risk, crime, directors and officers. All of those, we negotiate those contracts through brokers and to ultimately the underwriters. So what we do is we leverage economies of scale as a state to try to drive down that rate and drive down the cost of those products. The last thing that I'll do, and I'll end up on this, is enterprise level risk management. So we publish what are called term guidelines, the Texas Enterprise Risk Management Guidelines. And those incorporate, for the use of all agencies, all hazard, operational, financial, and strategic risk analysis. Through those guidelines and through that framework, we are the only jurisdiction in the country that has adopted the ISO 31000 framework, which is a global risk management standard, and applied that to Texas. That has also had a direct cost reduction impact. So I'm going to leave it there, Mr. Ladner, if you would like to.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Madam Chair, my name is Gerald Ladner. I am the chairman of the board of directors for the State Office of Risk Management. I had the privilege of serving on that board for the past 8 years. On behalf of the fellow board members who's taken an active interest in this exception request, thank you for your service to the state. I know how important time is, so I'll be brief. You know, when you look at exception item number 3, raising the allowable salary that we can offer the executive director, we actually have one of the best state risk managers in the country. I don't know if that's common knowledge. On that basis, we want to make sure that we have the tools so that should Stephen Volbright decide to retire, that we have the tools to go out and compete in the open marketplace. As you might be aware, risk management is a prized skill set in the private sector, and we want to be effective in our ability to recruit, retain the next round of talent. So hence our request. So again, thank you for the consideration for that exception, and understand that we are on mission and the board is fully behind this request.
Any question, members?
Chairman,
Senator Perry.
item 4 on page 5, air ambulance disputes. What is that? I mean, I'm familiar with air ambulances. I'm familiar with disputes. They have been through my office for different pieces of legislation over time, but what is that?
So in workers' compensation, we have what's a fee guideline, right? So you have a maximum allowable reimbursement. Medicare does something very similar. You know what a particular service is going to cost. There is a dispute right now with companies who own air ambulances for transport. And the argument is the Airline Deregulation Act then takes precedence and is superior to any of the laws that you have passed mandating what those services are worth. That is actively being disputed. It's been to the Supreme Court here.
So to be clear, it says that is provided to state employees. So these are transports of state employees that are now have bills that the state is saying is not in accordance with what we expected.
That is correct.
Secondly, what is the time period we've accumulated 2.8 million of transport costs? Is that 1 year? Is that multiple years of litigation?
That's multiple years of
Okay,
litigation. This is the complete amount that would be a potential liability were those arguments. And I'm a recovering attorney, so I'm trying not to do too much of the detail.
You're fine. No,
if they were to recover,
I'm a recovering CPA. I mean,
fair enough. So yes, if all of those claims, if they were to succeed in that argument, that's the amount that would be incorporated that we would have to.
That's good. It was something unusual to me. I first of all, when you have air transport, you're truly in a critical place. So I'm not disputing the need. Secondly, I would have thought we would have had a better contract, but that gets into service area conversations. Those guys like to play between the guidelines. So I'm familiar with their tactics, but when you need them, it really doesn't matter what it costs at that point.
That is correct.
But I appreciate it. I just was curious as that's what it says it is. I just didn't know that would be something we'd be in dispute over. So.
As a matter of course, just so everyone knows, those bills have been paid, not to the amount that was requested, but at about 135% of Medicare, over Medicare, what it allows. That's already been paid. This is the delta between what they're actually asking for and what they've already received.
Any more questions, members? Thank you very much for your testimony. Appreciate it.
Sir.
Right, thank you.
Next, we have the Ethics Commission, LBB presentation on budget, George Purcell. An agency presentation on budget, J.R. Johnson, and Randy Urban.